existence of social inequality in the society. How this debate has been shaped up is that whatever the concept of sin and goodness within the human being and concept of rebirth, that you have faced the wrath of God, that is also replicated in case of disaster also. Just like act of God clause is there, that whatever disaster is occurring, that is the act of God. What the human beings are doing wrong and God is punishing on that terms. So this is largely replicated in the case of the Dalit also. Because if you place the Dalit, they are in the social pedestal. They are placed in such a way that they are told that maybe in earlier birth you done something wrong. That's why you are being placed in the lower ladder of social order. Another shift comes in the form of natural hazard replaced by a standardized disaster risk reduction policy. Disaster risk reduction policy has been drafted in and around command and control approach of top-down approach, which gives little attention to the indigenous knowledge, which gives little attention to the marginalized people. The reason for state intervention in the disaster relief also lies in the emergence of a strong state and increasing the state's capacity. A state and those monopolizing the power act mostly in disfavor of the marginalized community. We have Disaster Management Act 2005, and I am analyzing that act in context of the discrimination and the practices which Indian society have adopted, or consciously or unconsciously they are doing again and again in the society. So Section 12 of Disaster Management Act 2005 warrants a special provision for widows and orphans, but caste has been ignored. Caste has no mention within the priority list. Widow and orphan have been given the priority under the relief and rescue operations, but caste is largely missing. Section 13 read as the national authority may, in the cases of disasters of severe magnitude, recommends relief and repayment of loan or for grant of fresh loans to the person affected by disaster on concessional terms as may be the appropriate. As the provision goes, it has no preferential policy regarding disbursement of loan to the weaker section of society. We all are knowing that we have preferential policy regarding disbursement of loan in general circumstances. We have priority sector lending in India. For agriculture, we have priority sector lending. But in case of disaster, we are undermining all these facts, that accessibility of loan and accessibility of disbursement of loan has been a problem in general times also, normal times also. So it has been largely missing within our legal framework. Again, Section 24J says a state executive committee, district authority under Section 34I may ensure that non-governmental organizations carry out their activity in equitable and non-discriminatory manner. But they are largely focusing on NGOs. They are not ready to come up. The whole system is not ready to come up within this framework, that they are also responsible for non-discriminatory and equitable distribution of relief material. Again, Section 51 of Disaster Management Act 2005 poses a gray area. According to this section, those who refuse to comply with the orders of the central government, state government or district authority, or create obstruction in the disaster work shall be punished with maximum 2 years terms. And this includes the unequal treatment of citizens and unfair distribution of benefit based on the caste. The state, on the other hand, already have Scheduled Caste and Tribe Prevention of Atrocity Act 1989, under which the state is offering the channel to lodge the FIR to the weaker section of society. Weaker section, that means largely SC and ST. And within this law, within 89 law, the larger punishment is there. Larger punishment, that means it goes like 10 years. And in case of Disaster Management Act, it is 2 years only. So when the person from Dalit community is visiting to the police station for having FIR, filing FIR, they are discriminated. They have large discretion, and they are deciding. SHO, local level SHO is deciding that which section they will be applying. So largely they are applying this Disaster Management Act provision because it has lesser punishment for the caste discrimination during disaster time. Ironically, Disaster Management Act 2005 established the punishment of maximum 2 years of term for the terms or fine for the false claim under section 52, which affects. The thing is that at the bottom of pyramid you will find that they have lesser documentation skills. They are not able to document each and everything. That means they are not able to keep their documents safe in one place. So maximum what happens is that distribution of relief and distribution of loans in post-disaster situations is based on the documents, that what documents, what kind of crops has been damaged. It is based on that. But if you see the skills of the Dalits or skills of the lower section of society, they are not able to produce their document. And if they have claimed and they are not able to produce their document for the claim, they will be fined or they will be punished for 2 years jail. So this kind of provision is creating inequity in accessing the relief material, in accessing the rehabilitation package sponsored by the state. Only one section 61 of Disaster Management Act largely talks about non-discrimination. It's basically non-discrimination clause that's available in the Constitution of India also, that no person shall be discriminated on the basis of caste, sex, color, or ethnic groups. Further, it also specifies under 71 that national, state and district authority as well as central and state government under Disaster Management Act 2005 cannot be challenged. Decision of a state, central or district authority cannot be challenged in district court. It can only be challenged in Supreme Court and High Court. So whatever discrimination you are facing, you cannot challenge it in a district court. So you must be knowing that accessibility of high courts and Supreme Courts, how much we are able to access the High Court and Supreme Court. So just think in terms of the Dalit, that how they will be able to access their claims when district court has been barred.
2 minutes.
District court has been barred in taking cognizance of all these discrimination, because only available remedy is with High Courts and Supreme Courts. Under section 73 gives the discretion clause. It gives the higher discretion to the officials who are in relief and rehabilitation scheme. They are given the higher discrimination, and this section has been used largely by the bureaucrats. That situation warranted this. That's why we took the decision at that very at the situation demanded. That's why we took this decision in a proper manner. So you cannot question it in a court. Limitations of my research is that this is based on secondary data, and there is no data, as in earlier session we already discussed, that there is no segregated data on the basis of gender, on the basis of caste. There is no segregated data under the in context in vis-a-vis disaster damages. There is no data from the side of gender and caste. 3 case studies I will give, and I will take the lead. First one is from the cyclones in Odisha. People belonging to Dewar caste, also known as Kaivarta, located in different coastal districts of Odisha, were discriminated by upper caste during the cyclone, and also in the process of relief and rehabilitation. There have been instances of exclusion of lower caste people from the beneficiary list. In case of Gujarat, compensation, in case of Bhuj earthquake, compensation was paid on the basis of honor-driven approach. That means if you don't have any document, you will not be getting the compensation, whatever be the disaster, because you are not owning any property, so you will not have damage. That's the approach. And third one is the tsunami related studies in Tamil Nadu. It was largely Dalit caste which faced the discrimination, and whole cleanup effort and whole relief and rehabilitation material was not distributed to the Dalit community, and even community kitchen was separate for Dalits and higher caste Hindus. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Binod Kumar, for talking on such an important topic on how discrimination, which is pre-existing in the society, actually gets magnified into kind of disasters, and for your analysis on how the Disaster Management Act, the Government of India, and also the policies are lacking on certain aspects of addressing the needs of or of addressing inclusion, especially for Dalits and Adivasis. With this, we would move to the next speaker, who's going to talk on post-disaster economic vulnerability for female-headed households. May I request Mr. Isaias S. Cialza from the Philippines.
My paper is Post-Disaster Economic Vulnerability of Female-Headed Households. My name is Isaias Cialza from Xavier University in the Philippines. Now I have here the outline. I'll be talking about the assumptions, methodology, findings, conclusion, and recommendations. My assumptions: some sector of society have difficulty bouncing back from a disaster, and more women than men. When I say some sectors, actually I'm specifically thinking about the women's sector. More women than men die as a result of natural disasters, and even for the surviving woman household head, the aftermath of a disaster remains tragic. In a post-disaster environment, especially flooding, where every poor household is in dire need, being in a female-headed household must be particularly tough. Now, poverty tends to be feminized, and the literature attributes it to the disadvantages of being female. In the labor market and in other income-generating opportunities, in the multiple household tasks that women have to attend to, in the higher dependency burden of female-headed households, in the limited access of women to economic resources, and in the cultural norms that inhibit the productivity of women. My conceptual framework: this study attempts to understand the income differences between female-headed households and male-headed households by looking at the relationship between income, household earnings, and structural factors, and the programmatic factors. It argues that while disaster affects people in the neighborhood in much the same way, the female-headed households are likely to remain disadvantaged relative to the male-headed households. And here, these are the hypothesized relationships. The structural factors being referred to here are land ownership and education of the household head. It's differentiated from programmatic factors, namely work status, position of farm animals, and social capital, because structural factors are embedded in the social structure and very difficult to change. Like land ownership, for example, is very difficult to access, especially by the poor family, and also even education. While programmatic factors like work status, there can be work opportunities that can be offered, possession of farm animals, animals can also be dispersed, and social capital, organization can also be built. So if you look at the conceptual framework, I'm really looking at the differences of female and male-headed households in terms of household income, and I'm saying that the difference in household income may have been due to structural factors or programmatic factors. Now, in the research methodology, the data were taken from a sample, random sample of from a sample drawn at random from a complete count of households after these households were hit by tropical storm Washi in 2011. The data collection was conducted under the auspices of Cagayan de Oro Archdiocese. An archdiocese is an administrative district of the Catholic Church. The main objectives of the archdiocese are just to get the profile, determine how many Catholics were there in the resettlement sites, and how many have received the sacraments. The sample size is 337. And an interview schedule was used during the complete count by means of a face-to-face interview technique. Now, data were processed and the level of living index was constructed by the principal component analysis. Now, an acceptable set of 10 indicators were chosen, from which I selected the main dependent variable, which is income. So social demographic, sanitation, house ownership, asset ownership, and household income. Now, level of living index is a composite index. And when I compared the level of living index of female and male-headed households, it turned out that the female-headed households exhibit lower index than the male-headed households. So I thought that the subsequent task then is to pin down a variable in which household categories are differentiated and which is directly sensitive to initiatives that can be introduced from the outside. And income was selected as the focal dependent variable because it is a component of the level of living index that is deemed to be sensitive to these initiatives and can serve as a measure of impact. And then what I did later on was to convert the income data into terciles because it is highly skewed. The findings. The flash flood that was due to tropical storm Washi killed more than 2,000 people. Official records show 2,000 people are dead or missing. People were saying it could have been more. And the damage to property was estimated at $29.5 million. Now, the average income of the sample of households that I have is $5,798, or equivalent to just $126 per month. Now, the household income of female-headed households on the average is $5,350, and male-headed households, it's 5,876 pesos per month. Just to give us a rough idea, 1 peso is equivalent to about 1.4 Indian rupees. Now, the poverty line, so both groups actually belong below the poverty line, because the poverty line actually is 9,600 pesos per month for a family of 5. So this is now the distribution when I compared the male-headed households and female-headed households in terms of income groupings. So almost automatically we see that female-headed households, the high category is only 6%, as against 37.6% of the male category. So we see that the relationship really is significant. The strength of the relationship is 0.35 Kramer's V. Now, next is I looked at the relationship between household, type of household, and the test factors, structural or programmatic factors. So looking through the data, it might be very clear there, but the factors that have strong association with type of household is number 1, work status, and number 2, household income, as seen earlier. And next, I looked at the association or relationship between the test factors and income. And then looking through the table, you see that work status is also strongly related with income, which means that those who have work have significantly higher incomes, regular source of income. And then education also of the household head has a moderately strong, significant relationship, which means those who are highly educated tend to have higher incomes. So this is the significant relationships that appear. So we see that the type of household is related to income, and male-headed households have higher incomes. And basically, it's due to the work status. No? I did not examine the education of the household head because the education of the household head does not differentiate by type of household. So next, what I did was to control for the effect of the differences in work status in the relationship between type of household and income. And so when I came up with this table, what came out is all the relationships, significant relationships, actually disappeared. which means that if female-headed households and male-headed households were in the same category of work status, their incomes would have been the same. So in other words, the difference in income of male and female-headed households is the work status. Now, another probably point that we can highlight here is if you look at the cumulative impact of poverty and disaster, then that is the experience of a total of the 33 households, especially among women. Okay, in conclusion, the hypothesis that female-headed households are likelier than male-headed households to belong to the lower end of the income distribution is supported by the data. And this is due mainly to the fact that male-headed households in general have regular sources of income in skilled occupations. Female-headed households generally do not have regular sources of livelihood and have to rely on intermittent work opportunities in the neighborhood. Now, the findings provide a glimmer of hope, especially since income differences between types of households are not due to structural factors that are difficult to correct, but to differences in work status that can be addressed, although with some struggle still, by development programs from the outside. This provides an indication to the entry point of development work. But first, it should be recognized by government planners and policymakers, by business groups and aid agencies and civil society organizations, that the women continue to be at the disadvantaged side of the male-female divide, and that something has to be done about it. My recommendations mainly was targeted to the Archdiocese of Cagayan de Oro. The Archdiocese of Cagayan de Oro in particular is influential among the populace, mostly composed of Catholics. That's 83%. The Archdiocese has been into numerous programs, mostly on youth empowerment, interfaith dialogue, natural family planning, and faith-related endeavors. I was trying to convince them that it is the time for the church to look more seriously, alongside religious concerns, at the work and livelihood concerns, especially of the female-headed households in the disaster resettlement areas. There is, of course, the necessity for training needs assessment among the female-headed households, where serious research work is necessary. The obvious entry point for development work is the creation of opportunities for the sources of livelihood for women, and livelihood opportunities may demand the requisite training skills. Training for skills on entrepreneurship, startup capital and market study, and training for skills in technical and vocational work. Thank you.